Gentlemen, what if the two most powerful foods for your testosterone after 50 have been sitting in the produce section this entire time, and nobody thought to tell you to combine them, not separately, together? Because the research on what happens when these two specific fruits are consumed in combination consistently every single morning points to something that most men over 50 have never been given the opportunity to try. I'm Dr. Emily Carter, a board-certified urologist with over 12 years of experience helping men over 50 reclaim the testosterone levels, the energy, and the vitality they were told were simply gone for good. I want to challenge something you may have been told, that testosterone decline after 50 is inevitable, irreversible, and something you simply have to manage around. In my clinical experience and in the research I follow closely, that belief is far more negotiable than most men realize. Your endocrine system does not stop responding to the right inputs at 50, or 60, or 70. And what you put in your body every single morning is one of the most powerful inputs it receives. Before we go further, do me a favor. Drop a comment right now and tell me, what's the one symptom of low testosterone that bothers you most? The fatigue, the mood, the physical changes, the loss of drive? I read every comment, and your answer genuinely shapes the content I create for you. Hit that like button while you're down there so this information reaches the men who need it most. Here's what most men over 50 don't understand about why their testosterone is declining. Yes, the testes naturally produce less testosterone with age. That part is real. But what the standard conversation almost never addresses is the cascade of biological processes that accelerate that decline far beyond what aging alone explains. Chronic inflammation signals the hypothalamus to suppress testosterone production. Elevated cortisol, the stress hormone, directly competes with and suppresses testosterone synthesis. An enzyme called aromatase, which increases in activity as men accumulate body fat, converts available testosterone into estrogen at an accelerating rate. And oxidative stress, the cellular damage caused by unstable free radical molecules, degrades the Leydig cells in the testes that are responsible for producing testosterone in the first place. This is why two men of the same age can have dramatically different testosterone levels. It is not simply about the clock ticking. It is about the biological environment those hormones are operating in. And that environment is profoundly influenced by what you eat, what you drink, and what you do with consistency every single day. The two fruits I'm going to walk you through today address this entire cascade, not one part of it, the whole thing. Pomegranate works through one set of mechanisms. Ginger, yes, ginger is technically a fruit, works through a complementary and equally compelling set of mechanisms. And when you combine them in the specific way I'm going to describe, the synergy between them creates something greater than either delivers alone. Today, I'm going to give you 5 reasons this combination works, rooted in the science, illustrated by the men I've worked with, and translated into a morning protocol you can start tomorrow. Number 1. This combination launches a direct assault on the aromatase enzyme that is converting your testosterone into estrogen. Let's start with the biology, because this mechanism is the one that surprises men most. Aromatase is an enzyme present throughout the body, in fat tissue, in the liver, in the adrenal glands, and its job is to convert androgens, including testosterone, into estrogens. In younger men with lower body fat, aromatase activity is relatively contained. But after 50, as visceral fat accumulates and metabolic efficiency declines, aromatase activity increases substantially. More testosterone gets converted. Estrogen levels rise relative to testosterone, and the clinical symptoms that follow, fatigue, reduced libido, loss of muscle mass, emotional flatness, increased breast tissue sensitivity, are frequently chalked up to aging when they are actually, in significant part, the consequence of an enzymatic imbalance that is biologically addressable. Here's where the research becomes genuinely exciting. Pomegranate contains elagitannins, specifically punicalagins and their metabolite urolithins, that have demonstrated meaningful aromatase inhibiting activity in multiple cell and animal studies. A study published in Food and Chemical Toxicology found that pomegranate extract reduced aromatase enzyme activity in a dose-dependent manner. Ginger, meanwhile, contains active compounds called gingerols and shogalls that operate through a different but complementary inhibitory pathway. Research published in the European Journal of Nutrition found that ginger extract significantly reduced aromatase expression in hormone-sensitive tissue. These two compounds are not doing the same thing through the same pathway. They are approaching the same target from different angles simultaneously. That is why the combination matters. That is why whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Emotionally, the realization that your testosterone isn't simply disappearing, that a meaningful portion of it is being actively converted into a hormone that works against your vitality, shifts something fundamental. It moves men from passive recipients of hormonal decline to men who understand a specific mechanism they can specifically address. That shift from resignation to informed agency is, in my clinical experience, one of the most powerful transformations a man can experience. You are not done. Your body has more capacity than you've been told. Practically, the morning combination protocol is straightforward. 8 ounces of 100% pure pomegranate juice, no added sugar, no blends, pure juice, combined with half a teaspoon of fresh ginger juice or 1/4 teaspoon of high-quality ginger powder. If you prefer whole fruit, half a pomegranate's worth of arils blended with a half-inch knob of fresh ginger and a small amount of water creates an equally effective morning tonic. Consume this first thing in the morning, ideally before breakfast, to allow maximum absorption of the active phytochemicals before digestive competition from other foods. Number 2, ginger directly stimulates the hormonal signaling pathway that tells your testes to produce more testosterone. This is the mechanism that most discussions of ginger entirely miss, and it is arguably the most clinically significant one on this list. The production of testosterone begins not in the testes, but in the brain. The hypothalamus releases a hormone called GnRH, which signals the pituitary gland to release luteinizing hormone, or LH. LH then travels through the bloodstream to the Leydig cells in the testes and delivers the signal to synthesize testosterone. This entire cascade, called the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, is sensitive to both stimulation and suppression by a wide range of biological inputs. Chronic inflammation suppresses it, elevated cortisol suppresses it, and conversely, certain compounds have been shown to upregulate it. Ginger is one of them. A randomized controlled trial published in Crete Medical Journal, one of the most frequently cited human studies on ginger and testosterone, found that men who consumed ginger daily for 3 months experienced a 47% increase in testosterone levels, alongside significant increases in LH. A separate study published in the journal Phytotherapy Research confirmed elevated LH and testosterone in male subjects supplemented with ginger extract over a comparable time frame. The mechanism appears to involve ginger's ability to reduce oxidative stress in testicular tissue, reduce inflammatory cytokines that suppress the HPG axis, and directly stimulate Leydig cell activity. This is not a marginal effect. This is the research showing this is genuinely possible. Emotionally, testosterone is not just a number on a lab panel. It is the biological substrate of how a man experiences himself. His energy in the morning, his engagement with life, his physical confidence, his sense of presence and purpose. When testosterone is low, men don't just feel tired. They feel like a dimmer version of themselves. And when it begins to restore, the return is not merely physical. Men describe feeling like themselves again. That is what the evidence-backed possibility of this combination represents, not a promise of transformation, a genuine opening toward reclamation. Practically, fresh ginger is consistently more bioavailable than dried powder for the compounds most relevant to testosterone, specifically the gingerols, which degrade somewhat during the drying process. If fresh ginger is accessible to you, use it. A ½ inch to 1 inch knob of fresh ginger, pressed through a garlic press or grated finely and squeezed, yields approximately ½ teaspoon of juice that mixes seamlessly into pomegranate juice. If fresh ginger isn't consistently available, a standardized ginger extract capsule of 500 to 1,000 milligrams alongside your pomegranate juice delivers consistent dosing of the relevant active compounds. I want to tell you about a patient of mine. His name was David, 61, a retired architect from the Southwest, sharp, self-aware, and deeply frustrated. He had watched his energy, his drive, and his physical presence gradually diminish over the better part of a decade. His total testosterone, when we tested it, was in the low normal range, technically not deficient, but far from where he had been. He wasn't a candidate for testosterone replacement therapy by standard clinical criteria, but he wanted to do everything within his power to move the needle naturally. I introduced him to this morning combination alongside targeted lifestyle adjustments. 12 weeks later, his testosterone had risen by over 30% from baseline. His energy was measurably different. His wife told him he seemed like himself again for the first time in years. David looked at me in the office and said, "I thought this was just aging. I didn't know there was something I could actually do." That moment is exactly why I do this work. Number 3. Pomegranate's antioxidant power protects the very cells responsible for making your testosterone. Let's talk about the Leydig cells, because most men have never heard of them, and they are at the absolute center of this conversation. Leydig cells are the specialized cells in your testes that manufacture testosterone in response to LH signaling. They are metabolically active. They generate significant oxidative byproduct in the course of hormone synthesis, and they are particularly vulnerable to the kind of oxidative damage that accumulates with age. As Leydig cell populations decline and their function degrades due to oxidative stress, testosterone production capacity decreases at the foundational level. Pomegranate has one of the highest antioxidant capacities of any food ever measured. Its unique polyphenols, punicalagins, are absorbed into the bloodstream, and research has demonstrated their specific accumulation in reproductive and hormone-producing tissue. A study published in Endocrine Journal found that pomegranate consumption significantly reduced oxidative stress markers in testicular tissue in research subjects while simultaneously increasing testosterone concentrations. A separate clinical study found that 2 weeks of daily pomegranate juice consumption produced an average testosterone increase of 24%, a finding that has been replicated in subsequent trials with consistent directional results. The mechanism is clear. Less oxidative damage to Leydig cells means better preserved testosterone-producing capacity. Better preserved capacity means more testosterone produced in response to hormonal signaling. Your body has more capacity than you've been told. Emotionally, oxidative damage is invisible. You cannot feel a Leydig cell being degraded by free radical activity, but you feel the cumulative downstream consequence, the slow, year-by-year erosion of testosterone that most men attribute entirely to inevitable aging. Understanding that a meaningful fraction of that erosion is driven by a process you can actively slow and partially reverse is not an abstract comfort. It is a genuinely actionable insight. The research shows this is possible, and possible is enough to begin. Practically, to maximize the antioxidant delivery of pomegranate to hormone-producing tissue, cold-pressed pomegranate juice is preferable to pasteurized versions when available, as the high-heat pasteurization process degrades a portion of the polyphenol content. However, commercially available 100% pomegranate juice, even pasteurized, retains sufficient active compounds to produce meaningful benefit at a daily 8-ounce dose. Store your juice in glass rather than plastic when possible to prevent leaching of compounds that can disrupt hormonal function. This is a small detail with a disproportionate impact. Number 4. This combination directly combats the chronic inflammation suppressing your testosterone production at the source. Inflammation and testosterone are locked in a biological opposition that most men are never told about. When inflammatory cytokines, signaling molecules like interleukin-6, TNF-alpha, and interleukin-1 beta, are chronically elevated, They cross the blood-brain barrier and suppress GnRH release from the hypothalamus. They also directly suppress LH production in the pituitary. And at the testicular level, inflammatory molecules inhibit the enzymatic pathway through which Leydig cells convert cholesterol into testosterone. Chronic low-grade inflammation, which increases substantially after 50 in most men on a standard Western diet, is essentially a continuous signal to your endocrine system to produce less testosterone. It is a biological environment of suppression. Both pomegranate and ginger are among the most extensively studied natural anti-inflammatory compounds available. Pomegranate's elagitannins inhibit the NF-kappa B inflammatory pathway, one of the master switches for systemic inflammation, with a potency that multiple studies have described as comparable to pharmaceutical anti-inflammatory compounds in certain tissue contexts. Ginger's gingerols and shogals inhibit prostaglandin and leukotriene synthesis through COX and LOX enzyme inhibition, pathways that are central to the inflammatory cascade. A study published in the International Journal of Preventive Medicine found that ginger supplementation significantly reduced key inflammatory biomarkers, including CRP and TNF-alpha in human subjects. Together, these two compounds address the inflammatory suppression of testosterone production at multiple simultaneous points in the cascade. Emotionally, chronic inflammation is one of those invisible burdens that men carry without a name for it. The persistent stiffness in the joints, the slow recovery after physical activity, the feeling that the body is always working slightly against itself. These are the sensory textures of a chronically inflamed system. When inflammation begins to resolve, men don't always have words for the change at first. They say things like, "I just feel lighter," or "something that was always tense has let go." That easing is real, and the testosterone recovery that follows it is equally real. Practically, consistency of the anti-inflammatory effect is more important than dose intensity. A daily moderate dose is dramatically more effective than an occasional large dose. This is why the morning protocol, same time, same combination every day, is foundational. Anti-inflammatory compounds require consistent presence in the bloodstream to maintain ongoing suppression of inflammatory pathways. Think of it less like a treatment and more like a daily environmental reset for your endocrine system. Let me tell you about another patient. His name was Raymond, 68, a former high school principal from the Mid-Atlantic. A careful, methodical man who was skeptical of natural approaches, but willing to track everything with data. His testosterone was low. His CRP, a key inflammatory marker, was elevated. His energy was poor, and his mood, by his own description, had flattened significantly over 3 years. We built his protocol around this morning combination plus targeted dietary changes. He kept a detailed log. At week 6, his CRP had dropped meaningfully. At week 10, his testosterone had increased by 28% from baseline. Raymond came back to me and put his tracking sheet on the desk and said, simply, "The data doesn't lie." That's the kind of man I love working with. And the data he collected on himself is the kind of evidence-backed possibility I want every man watching this to experience firsthand. Number 5, ginger and pomegranate together address the cortisol-testosterone axis, the hormonal war most men don't know they're losing. This final mechanism may be the most important one for men who feel they are doing everything right and still not seeing results. Cortisol, your primary stress hormone, and testosterone are produced from the same precursor molecule, pregnenolone. When your body is under sustained stress, whether physical, psychological, or metabolic, it prioritizes cortisol production. The pregnenolone gets routed toward the stress response pathway and away from testosterone synthesis. This is sometimes called the pregnenolone steal, and it is one of the central reasons that men with high-stress lives, poor sleep, and chronic metabolic strain have testosterone levels that resist improvement despite everything else they do. Ginger has demonstrated meaningful cortisol-modulating properties in human research. A study published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology found that ginger extract reduced cortisol concentrations and improved stress hormone balance in study subjects. Pomegranate's antioxidant compounds reduce the oxidative stress that drives adrenal overactivation, essentially reducing one of the primary inputs that tells your adrenal glands to keep producing cortisol at elevated levels. Together, this combination helps shift the pregnenolone routing back toward testosterone synthesis by reducing the biological demand for cortisol production. Emotionally, the cortisol-testosterone dynamic is the hidden story behind why so many driven, health-conscious men over 50 still struggle with testosterone levels that don't reflect their effort. They exercise, they sleep reasonably well, they manage their weight, and yet the testosterone doesn't come back the way they expect. Often, chronic low-grade cortisol elevation, driven by accumulated life stress, metabolic strain, and inflammatory load, is the missing piece of the explanation. Understanding this mechanism doesn't just provide a solution, it provides absolution. It tells men that the struggle wasn't a failure of will or effort. It was a hormonal environment that needed a different kind of attention, and that environment is addressable. Practically, to maximize the cortisol moderating benefit of this combination, timing your morning protocol alongside a 10-minute period of intentional stillness, no phone, no news, no input, enhances the cortisol reduction significantly. This is not about meditation as a lifestyle philosophy. It is about the well-established physiological fact that 10 minutes of reduced sensory input in the morning lowers morning cortisol spike. Pair that with your pomegranate ginger combination, and you are creating a morning environment that tells your endocrine system it is safe to produce testosterone. Here is your action plan. It is specific, achievable, and grounded in everything we have covered today. Step 1. Every morning, prepare your combination tonic. 8 ounces of 100% pure pomegranate juice with either a ½ inch knob of fresh ginger pressed or grated into it, or ½ teaspoon of high-quality ginger powder, or a 500 milligram standardized ginger extract capsule taken alongside the juice. Consume this before breakfast. Step 2. Follow your morning tonic with 10 minutes of quiet. No screens, no news, no stimulation. Sit with your coffee or your water and simply let your nervous system settle. This is the cortisol piece, and it costs nothing except 10 minutes. Step 3. Track 3 things weekly: your morning energy level on a scale of 1 to 10, your motivation and drive, and your sleep quality. Do this for 8 weeks. The changes you are tracking are hormonal in origin, and they build gradually. Weekly tracking reveals the trend that daily observation misses. That is your complete morning protocol. 3 steps, less than 15 minutes, and the most clinically grounded, natural testosterone support strategy I know of for men over 50. Gentlemen, I want to say this directly and clearly. If you have been told that where your testosterone is right now is simply where it has to stay, that the fatigue, the flatness, the physical decline is just the price of being over 50, that narrative deserves to be challenged with evidence. Because the evidence tells us that the biological mechanisms driving testosterone decline are not simply a clock ticking down. They are processes. Processes respond to inputs, and the inputs we have discussed today, consistent, accessible, and backed by real research, give those processes something different to respond to. This is not empty optimism. This is not cheerleading. This is the research showing repeatedly and consistently that your body's capacity for hormonal recovery is greater than you have been told. You are not done. What's actually within reach may surprise you. If this video gave you something real, give it a like so other men can find it. Leave a comment below. Tell me which of these 5 mechanisms surprised you most. Share this with a man in your life who has accepted low testosterone as his new normal, because acceptance isn't the only option. And subscribe to this channel so you never miss the evidence-backed, clinically grounded health content I create every week for men over 50. I'm Dr. Emily Carter. The research is clear, and so is the possibility. Your testosterone story is not finished being written. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.